People forget how good Dwight Howard's prime was.
I am so disappointed at this list because Dwight Howard gets disrespected so much, it's ridiculous.
He's a great rebounder and a great shot blocker, but offensively, he hasn't gotten better.
Why doesn't D. Howard get the respect he deserves?
I think he probably was a little bit too goofy.
In the NBA, back in the 70s and 80s, if you wanted to win a championship, you needed a dominant center. Kareem, Bill Russell, Wilt. The greatest players in the history of the game up until the early 90s were universally big men. However, once the 21st century hit, the way the game of basketball was played changed forever. The 2000s and 2010s ushered in a new style of hoops that focused on perimeter play. The best players who took home all the rings were LeBron, Curry, Kawhi, KD. In the matter of roughly a decade, the center position was rendered obsolete. Guys like DeAndre Jordan were getting first-team All-NBA appearances. That's how you know we were stuck in hell. So who was the last great big man before this drought occurred? Well, that was none other than Dwight Howard. A player who had a fascinating career, but whose basketball reputation doesn't reflect that. Look no further than the NBA Top 75 Players list to understand how disrespected this guy's game is by the NBA world. In late 2021, the NBA was celebrating its 75th year. To honor it, the league decided to rank the best 75 players to ever play the game. The biggest uproar came when it was announced that Dwight Howard couldn't even crack the list. Fans were left in shock, and Dwight called it disrespect. As a result of this, many people soon came to the realization that the young basketball watchers of today don't really know Dwight Howard's career. Spectators only know him for his declining years, the Kobe feuds, the bouncing around different teams, not for his Hall of Fame achievements. His on-the-court play is only remembered in a bad light, but why is this? Today, we'll be exploring the career of Dwight Howard and analyzing the rise and fall of one of the most polarizing basketball figures of our time. In 2004, Dwight Howard started his career in the Sunshine State, with the Orlando Magic after being drafted by them with the #1 pick. Almost immediately, he proved himself to be worthy of this selection. He filled the shoes of the previous Magic center that came before him in Shaq, becoming an All-NBA player by his third season. Off the court, by his second year, Dwight had already gone through 3 different head coaches. Ultimately, the Magic knew the incredible talent they had. They were scarred from the departure of Shaq just a few years prior, so they scrambled to try and please their new star by any means necessary, even if it meant firing and hiring like it was 2K My League. All this backstory makes the eventual drama between these two sides so painful. After being accepted and rejected by Billy Donovan, the Magic settled on Stan Van Gundy to be their new head coach in the summer of 2007. Van Gundy was a mixed bag.
There can't be one run and let up. The intensity's gotta go up, up, not down, up.
He played a huge role in the Magic's famous 2009 finals run with his strong defense and dynamic offense. But he and Dwight just didn't mesh personality-wise. You'll find out more later. On the court, from 2004 to 2008, Dwight continued to rise up the ranks and improve his game. The Magic evolved from an irrelevant lottery team to one that made the playoffs, even going as far as winning a playoff series for the first time in 12 years in 2008. This was mainly due to Dwight. By 2008, at age 22, he was universally ranked as a top 5 player and best center in the league. I mentioned earlier that young basketball fans don't know much about this guy, but what I can confidently say everyone knows about is the Magic's 2009 season. The 2008-09 Magic are remembered most fondly by fans for their dominant 59-win season that included an incredible finals run. In this year, Dwight, the 23-year-old, made first-team All-NBA, first-team All-Defense, and was the runaway winner of the Defensive Player of the Year award. The guy was battling tooth and nail with Kobe and LeBron for the title of the best player in the league, something that Jokic and Embiid at age 23 weren't even close to doing. The Magic ultimately had so much success because their roster was just that damn good. On offense, Dwight had the perfect amount of spacing to flourish in the post thanks to a plethora of shooters around him. On defense, the Magic were even better. They had the strongest defensive rating in the league, and it was all thanks to their center. Dwight averaged a league-leading 2.9 blocks per game. He was an intimidating beast in the paint, and made players of all kinds hesitate on their drives to the rack. Superman was indeed in the building. That's what they called him, by the way, after he took first place in the 2008 Slam Dunk Contest. Love him or hate him, Shaq hated him. Dwight Howard's aura was off the charts, and he was quickly cementing himself as an NBA celebrity. But one thing was missing from his achievement list. Rings, Erne. If you want to be taken seriously and not get mercilessly eaten alive by the horde of NBA Twitter trolls, you gotta make a deep playoff run, or else you'll end up like Joel Embiid. So there was much pressure on Dwight and his Orlando teammates to go out there and earn their respect in the 2009 postseason, which they did. What's interesting about the Magic's iconic 09 run was that there were many instances where they fell to the brink of elimination, but their resilience kept them alive. In round 1, they shockingly fell down 2-1 to the 6-seeded Sixers, and almost lost game 4, but escaped thanks to a clutch Hedo Turkoglu 3. Against the Boston Celtics in round 2 without Kevin Garnett, Orlando fell down 3-2, and would have been defeated in humiliating fashion if it weren't for these two fellas. In Game 6, Superman stepped up with 23 points, 22 rebounds, and 3 blocks. In Game 7, it was Hedo Turkoglu who took over in a blowout win on the road that saw him score 25. But I know what you're waiting for. No one talks about these two rounds when reminiscing on the 2009 Magic playoff run. They all talk about one series only, the Eastern Conference Finals against Bron, where the Magic shockingly slayed the mighty Cleveland Cavaliers. So how did they manage to do this? Well, it all came down to excellent execution in crunch time. In Game 1, Orlando grabbed the W thanks to a Rashard Lewis game winner. In Game 4, they hit dozens of clutch shots and outplayed Cleveland down the stretch. Ultimately, these two wins came down to who hit the big shots when it mattered, and Orlando was the team that came up large. This series was the one where Dwight stamped his name as an all-time talent. He took a 66-win opponent known for their tough defense and demolished them on offense, averaging an efficient 26-13, including a monster closeout Game 6 that saw him score 40 points on 67% field goal shooting. This was all the while he was incredible on defense, per usual. Orlando had spoiled the Kobe vs. LeBron party, all thanks to the stellar play of Dwight Howard and the gang. But now let's talk about the elephant in the room. Why couldn't the Magic translate this hot streak into their first NBA championship? On the surface, one might take a glance at the 2009 finals and come to the wrongful conclusion that the Magic got pummeled by the LA Lakers. In reality though, this series was extremely close. 2 games were each decided by just a few points. In Game 2, Courtney Lee missed a wide open layup that would have won it for Orlando, and the Lakers would go on to win in overtime. In Game 4, the Magic led by 3 with just 11 seconds left, with Dwight going to the line for a chance to seal the win. But he clanked both shots. Then Derek Fisher for LA knocked down a 3 to tie it. In OT, Fisher canned another clutch triple to guide his squad to victory. Winning either of these 2 games would have shifted the momentum drastically in Orlando's favor, but instead, they got crushed. As for Dwight, he was contained in this series. The frontcourt trio of Pau Gasol, Andrew Bynum, and Lamar Odom all shut him down, holding him to just 15 points per game on less than 50% field goal shooting. Yuck. Orlando's 3-ball, which had been red hot all playoffs long, fell to just 33% in the finals. This allowed the Lakers defense to swarm and blitz Dwight every time he got the ball. Howard had an opportunity to establish himself as the best player in the league. Instead, he became just another forgotten victim of Kobe Bean Bryant. With Dwight being just 23 here, many felt there was no question that these boys would be back fighting for a banner. But the Magic never reached this height again. Why? The Magic's following 2009-10 season saw them post an identical record as the year prior, 59 wins, but they failed to execute in the playoffs. Dwight had yet another fantastic year, once again winning the Defensive Player of the Year award and snatching a first-team All-NBA appearance on top of it. Howard was in the midst of a stretch where he would win 3 straight Defensive Player of the Year awards, the first and only player to do this in NBA history. He was transforming into a basketball icon, but desperately needed a championship to solidify himself amongst the greats. The 2010 playoffs appeared to be the perfect time to do so. Once LeBron James and the Cavs, the 61-win #1 seed, were shockingly eliminated in round 2 to the Celtics, all eyes were on Orlando to take advantage and get the job done. The East was wide open, or so it seemed, because after sweeping rounds 1 and 2, the Magic ran into some trouble in the conference finals. Against the Big Three Boston Celtics, the C's got revenge, stunningly jumping out to a 3-0 lead and eventually winning the series in 6. Paul Pierce thoroughly outplayed Dwight Howard. In games 1 and 3, Howard scored just 13 and 7 points on inefficient field goal shooting. He didn't play nearly his best ball in this series. Plus, his once formidable supporting cast was quiet, and the C's took full advantage. What should have been a rematch versus the Lakers ended up being a disappointing ending to a strong season. The 24-year-old Dwight had missed his opportunity at greatness, and unbeknownst to him, his window was closing. Time was running out. In the 2010-11 season, Howard continued his rise as a superstar. Yet another DPOY, yet another first-team All-NBA appearance, and this time a second-place finish in the MVP race, with many believing he deserved number 1. This guy was on another level, and was arguably at the peak of his powers. Despite this dominance though, Orlando lost in round 1 of the playoffs to the Atlanta Hawks. And this time, it wasn't Dwight that struggled, but the team around him that failed to show up. The Hawks' game plan on defense was simple: let Howard get his, and force other players on the Magic to shoot. It worked to perfection. The big man averaged a ridiculous 27 and 15, even scoring a mind-blowing 46 points in Game 1, yet it just wasn't enough. Guys Howard had relied on in the past like Jameer Nelson or Hedo Turkoglu stank up the court, while the team's new exciting addition in Gilbert Arenas turned out to be washed. A team that had made 2 straight conference finals appearances was now a first round out, and soon enough, far more important issues than just roster construction would start to unfold. In the 2011-12 season, a wave of misfortune struck the Magic franchise. First and most pressingly, back injuries. Dwight's career was destroyed by them. Anyone who knows a thing or two about back problems knows that once you get them, it's extremely difficult to repair, and they severely limit your athletic ability. Howard was no different. For most of the season up until April, he'd been playing strong basketball per usual, but in a spring game against the Sixers, he suffered a herniated disc. This injury not only ended Dwight's season, but it sidelined him for the 2012 Summer Olympics, robbing him of what could have been the perfect opportunity to expand his basketball brand. Although this injury was debilitating, something else involving the star center was going on during this time. A 4-month-long period where Dwight tortured the city of Orlando was in its midst, and it was stealing all of the headlines. The time is December 2011. Tensions between Dwight and the Magic organization were worsening by the day, and these problems reached their climax when Howard officially requested a trade before the lockout-shortened season began. His reasoning? He didn't believe the team around him was good enough to compete, and he hated his coach, Stan Van Gundy. He wanted to go to a bigger market, like Brooklyn. The Magic refused to deal him, so the two sides came to an agreement to play out the rest of the season, considering Dwight was a free agent in the summer of 2012. Then something weird happened. In March 2012, 3 months after this trade request, Howard picked up his player option, which extended his contract with the Magic through the 2012-13 season. Well, golly gee, the guy just changed his mind. Only kidding. Just 3 months later, he requested another trade. Well, why? Well, in the months of March through June, all hell broke loose between the superstar and his head coach. Dwight and Stan Van Gundy never had the perfect relationship. Over the years, the two had gone back and forth against one another. Whether it was Dwight questioning Van Gundy's offensive strategy.
Our coach has to recognize, when he has a certain group out there and they're getting the job done, you have to leave those guys on the floor.
Or Van Gundy criticizing Dwight for not trying hard enough on defense. These two were no strangers to some beef. In April of 2012, Dwight asked management to fire him, but once these reports went public, Howard quickly denied it. This all culminated in an awkward moment between the two during a team practice on the day this news broke out. Howard approached his coach while he was being interviewed about the firing request, and wrapped his arm around him in a weird, uncomfortable manner.
But I ain't worried about that, so.
Yeah, Stan, we're not worried about that, right?
That's what I just said. We gotta be worried about winning games.
Yeah, what's our main concern right now? Jameer.
We have to stop Carmelo Anthony and the New York Knicks tonight.
And the New York Knicks.
That's exactly
That's
right.
the plan, right?
That is the plan. That's what I just said.
Stan then waddled away after this interaction, while Dwight proceeded to lie to reporters and say he never asked management to fire the coach. Just 2 days later, Howard suffered the aforementioned herniated disc injury that ended his season. Yikes. This entire ordeal destroyed the Magic's chemistry. Teammates that had loved Dwight now felt betrayed, believing Howard had spit on all their hard work and essentially called them scrubs. This period of drama was infamously dubbed Dwightmare, and it tarnished the big man's reputation. Following their predictable round 1 exit to the Pacers, the Magic would get rid of both these two. In the blink of an eye, the Dwight Howard era in Orlando was over. What started out with goals of a first championship being brought to the Magic franchise slowly crumbled into a drama-filled nightmare by the end. In August 2012, this spectacle was concluded as Dwight was traded to the Lakers in a blockbuster deal. Once again, the Magic had lost their generational center to Los Angeles for the poo-poo platter. This trade brought a massive opportunity for Dwight. The guy hated being in the small market of Orlando. Well, where better to go than the biggest market in America, Hollywood. With an incredible big three of Kobe, Steve Nash, and Dwight, LA was favored by many to win the 2013 championship. However, once Dwight started playing his first few games with the Lakers, it quickly became apparent that something with him was off. The numbers he posted were fine, but his offense and defense were a shell of themselves. His inside game, which he had relied on for years in Orlando, took a sharp decline in part due to his loss of athleticism from back surgery. The Lakers' quote-unquote super team struggled and fell way below expectations, imploding due to a lack of chemistry and injuries. Howard's disappointing play was a big reason for this failure. It wasn't all his fault. Much of his struggles were out of his control, but that didn't stop him from being eviscerated by the giant LA media. His perceived unseriousness and overly silly personality were targeted, with many accusing him of not having a true passion for the game. His 2 Hall of Fame teammates in Nash and Kobe were rumored to dislike him as well, though Kobe and Dwight both claimed the media manufactured beef between them. Dwightmare combined with this Lakers failure were the 2 events that truly destroyed this guy's basketball reputation. Never mind the fact that he was returning in 4 months from an injury that had a recovery timetable of a year. Nobody cared. The guy was just 26 years old when his prime ended, and it was only downhill from here. Fittingly, in his final game as a Laker, Dwight was ejected.
Dwight Howard has been ejected from the game. What a way to end the year.
His team had been swept in round 1. He promptly left the Lakers and joined Houston in the offseason, teaming up with James Harden. Many, including Dwight, believed these two had the potential to be the modern-day Kobe Shaq. Spoiler alert, no. The tail end of Dwight being considered a star came when he was with Houston. After joining the squad, he quickly ran into a big issue. He wanted to be the man and have the offense run through him. One problem: James Harden existed. The Rockets wanted Dwight to commit to rim running, catching lobs, and doing pick and rolls, which angered him greatly. Howard wanted to prove that he was capable of being a superstar on offense, despite lacking the post moves and athleticism necessary. It got so bad that there were reports Howard was whiffing on screens and giving half effort on the floor as a protest against his lack of offensive touches. This led to some believing there was beef between him and Harden, though both denied this. Many spectators feel Dwight developed this toxic thought process due to the harsh criticism he received from Charles Barkley and Shaq on TNT's Inside the NBA. These two gentlemen constantly got on Howard's case, lampooning his lack of an offensive arsenal.
You heard all the stuff the Lakers said about you.
Right.
You've heard
the Lakers?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think it was you.
What? About what? I said you were disengaged in Houston, but I told you why.
In short, Howard's ego held him back from achieving success in Houston. He refused to adapt to the system, and after 3 years in which he continuously declined, he was on his way out. His last big contract came in the summer of 2016, where he signed a 3-year, $70 million deal with the Atlanta Hawks. How did the reunion with his hometown team go? Well, here's a hint. He spent 1 year there, and his Hawks teammates reportedly screamed in jubilation after hearing he was traded from the team. He was no longer an all-star. He was now simply an above-average starting center. This was partly due to a loss of athleticism, and also due to a refusal to accept any other role than the one he wanted for himself on offense. NBA insiders claimed he made his teammates miserable with his corny pregame speeches and moping whenever he didn't get the ball. The guy's reputation was one of a flat-out diva, but hey, He somehow got a tribute video from the Hawks anyway after playing with them for just one season.
They did a Dwight Howard tribute. Good Jack. He played there 1 year. And they did a Dwight Howard tribute. It took him 3 weeks to find enough footage. Come on, Ernie.
Things kept getting worse and worse. He bounced around the league, soon playing for the Hornets and then the Wizards, all to mediocre results. The complaints about his game remained the same. A constant demand for post-ups, turnover machine, undisciplined offense like taking random mid-range shots, tuning out on defense. The numbers may have been nice, but he was just flat out mid. A far cry from the beast of the past. He got cut by the Nets, then cut by the Grizzlies. This was it. It was time for the selfish big fella to fade into the basketball history books with a tarnished legacy. But in the summer of 2019, his entire mindset changed. With few teams offering him deals, he pleaded with a former enemy, the Lakers, to sign him. In exchange for a minimum non-guaranteed contract, he would finally lock in and accept his role to the fullest. This worked out perfectly. In what was the perfect redemption arc to his career, Dwight won a championship with LA in 2020. He played the role of an elite backup center, seeing a big dip in his stats, but a major rise in his impact. He was finally contributing to winning for the first time in years. He was a true professional on the court and in the locker room, partly rebuilding his reputation in just one season from juvenile to a winner. In a full circle moment, he earned a ring with his former rival LeBron James. A fitting ending. Now, his NBA playing days are long over. He's busy trolling in Taiwan and spam posting on Twitter. Good for him. I'm fully convinced that the younger basketball watching audience, Gen Z, has no idea how good this guy truly was because they only remember the tail end of his playing days. So if there's one thing you can take away from Dwight Howard's career, it's that his story is one of imperfection. He was an utterly baffling figure, because the hard part of being a player came so easy to him. He could put up 20 and 12 every night without breaking a sweat. It's just that the simple no-brainer intangibles of being coachable and having maturity seemed to completely escape him. However, the fact that he kept playing, even after back injuries decimated his athleticism at age 26, is a testament to his passion for the game. The media trying to erase that because of his eccentric personality is lame, but typical. Whenever his name comes up in basketball discussions, you can usually find mixed conversations ranging from people calling him the greatest center of our generation to a complete loser who wasted his potential. Dwight Howard represents a bygone era of basketball, the last truly great big man before three-point shooting took over the NBA, and no one can take that title away from him. So go ahead and hang the banner, preferably in Taiwan if possible. Thanks.